that.
Yeah.
So here I just want to basically talk about troubleshooting and overheating. Is a topic I've talked on, but for the emphasis sake and this time, because overheating can get you stranded. So in a situation whereby your mechanic is far away from you, what are the steps and what are the things that you can basically do to get your car going pending the time you get a proper rescue? So when you say overheating in cars is the alteration of the cooling system in the car. I'm not talking of the AC air conditioning, but the cooling of the engine and the transmission. That's the gearbox. So once there is a little alteration about it and the cooling ceases, then the temperature shoots up. Before you know it, a lot of things we shut down almost the same time. The AC will not be cooling very well, and the car movement too will be sluggish. So these are the symptoms, because I wonder when some people struggle with car that is not moving fine and they neglected the instrumental cluster. That's the speedometer. It's just there for you to read the parameters of the car as it's going. So most people, what they do, they ignore the speedometer, the information there, because at times you will see, if it's the analog temperature gauge, you will see that the temperature gauge will move away from the midpoint, because normally in all driving condition it stays at the midpoint. So the moment it leaves that midpoint and heading towards the red zone, that's a problem. So it's either you pull over and detect whether one problem or the other. But if it still remains there, if it's for the digital, it's almost the same thing. The moment it leaves that midpoint and going upward towards the red zone, then it's dangerous to drive. So in process of troubleshooting overheating, you consider two things. There's the electrical fault aspect of it that could cause overheating. Then there's the mechanical fault aspect of it that could cause overheating.
As well.
So under the electrical fault, we have something like the fan relay.
Okay.
Yeah.
When it stops working.
If it stops working, all of a sudden it could just packed up. So it will cease the fan from cooling the engine. Then the fan fuse, even the fan itself could develop fault. Even when there is current in it, it could develop fault, and the revolution could drop. And once the engine is not getting the maximum cooling, overheating sets in.
Exactly.
So, and this one do happen in the two speed in one fan. There's a double fan.
Double fan.
There's this double fan which one cool the engine, while one comes up when the AC is on. There's a big one that it has two speed in one. There's a normal speed, maybe for the cooling, but when the engine needs more cooling, you find out that the speed increases.
Okay.
That's when you see that if you stand in front of the car, you just suddenly discover that there's an increase in the revolution of the fan. So that's the one single fan in which there is two speed in it. So if there is alteration in this fan, it could lead to overheating. Other things under the mechanical aspect that could cause overheating: if you have a leakage, maybe in any of the radiator cell, if you have a leakage along the hose, the coolant hose, if you have a malfunction or a defective water pump, that's water pump. Then if you also have a stocked temperature thermostat, it prevents the water from flowing from the engine into the radiator to get some cooling. So if all these are no longer active the way it used to work, then overheating sets in. Then the height of it is that if you ignore all this, it could lead to a engine damage, which will flatten the gasket, and that might be a serious workshop repair.
Wow.